ground bait, pellets, particles, hook baits, tips, advice, star anglers. It can only be Advanced Bait Solutions 3. It's all kicking off. Dave Roberts and Justin Beale take on the barbel and chub of the River Wye. Steve Barraclough takes on me in a battle of the bragging rights. Andy May and Tony Curd get their rods pulled round. And Ian Didcott and Darren Cox prove once again why they're regarded as some of the best in the business. Add to that a new ground bait that's about to take the country by storm. I don't know about you, but I'm ready. We've come to the River Wye just above Hereford to meet local expert Dave Roberts. Dave's already set up down the bank. Let's see if he's catching some fish. Mr. Roberts, how are you, sir?
Mr. Neil, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. This is your stomping ground, this, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely, this, isn't it? We've got a lovely peg here running down, you know, onto a ford, shallower water, and it's just a real nice peg to fish. I think there'll be chub here. I'm hoping there might be a few dace and roach as well. This time of year, they do sort of come up into these shallow waters to spawn.
Are you loose feeding or?
Yeah, I'll put ground bait in, 7 balls.
Right.
Something just to get some bait down on the bottom. I've got some casters and hemp in there. And then the idea now is I'm just loose feeding maggots over the top, a bit of hemp, and that's just sort of putting a column of bait through the water, which will draw fish up onto the ground bait.
Pro Natural you're using, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a new ground bait. The idea was to come up with a silverfish mix that would work on any venue where your usual river species, your chub, your roach, your dace would respond. We've gone away from the fish meal, sort of a traditional ground bait if you like in that sense, but we've tried to develop a ground bait that will work universally, whether it be sort of slow, deep canals or fast flowing rivers like this. We do a lot of fishing on here where we're fishing poled hand, trying to get the fish in one area of your peg and catch as many as you can. So it was a case of creating a mix that's got the right sort of qualities so you can add some weight to it, but it's still got the breakdown, but also will carry lots of particles and casters and hemp and anything you want to put in there. As I'm using it today, because this is a reasonably shallow stretch, all I want to do, I mixed it quite spongy today, so I can squeeze a ball just once, throw it in, and that will break up real quickly and just send a column of bait going down the river.
You're a hard taskmaster, you guys, to please, aren't you? But I think they seem to have come up with the right mix, and it binds well, breaks down quickly, carries bait.
We wanted to get it right, and as did everyone, and in all fairness, these guys know what they're doing, and they came up with this, and it was absolutely perfect. Oh, there's a fish.
Oh, that's a big fish.
Yes.
That's not a dace, mate.
Oof, look at that go.
Oh, look at that. What a creature. They do say they're born at £4 on the Wye, don't they?
At this time of year, they're still a bit sort of, after spawning, they're still a bit empty.
A bit lean, yeah.
You know, looking at that could be a £5 fish in the winter, but definitely 4.
What a creature, look at that, come on. Cool. Big rubber lips, go on, get in there. Well done, mate.
That's a big old fish when it's at its full way. I'm looking down its throat, a few particles of the ground bait there, so that's good. It's picking up on that, but there's not a lot of loose feed inside it, so...
That tells me there's loads of them there, Dave.
Should be a few more there, shouldn't there?
Give me a quick rundown on float selection, because obviously that's paramount, isn't it, on a river like this?
You need a float that's going to react right in the current, you know, it needs to be heavy enough to take your bait down and keep it running on the same line you want it to do, but you don't want it to be too heavy that then it sort of hampers your presentation. The peg we're on today is just made for just running through, you know, because you're running onto a fast floor. This time of year the fish are moving around. In winter the fish are more likely to be sat very still, and you're going to have to present baits in different ways. Right. A bolognese float or a heavier stick float or a waggler, you know, sort of slowing it down, dragging line on the bottom. Do
you have any sort of quick gauges on depths to weight to float?
I've got a 16 number 4 stick float, identical to this one,
right.
But in 16 number 4s, this one's 10 number 4. So this is a lovely rig for running through today with the flow. I'm just running it off the bottom and holding it back occasionally and fluttering the bait around. And then I've got the 16 number 4 set up for if I really want to hold it in one area. If these fish settle over the ground bait, then I'll sort of throw it and hold it there. Still a strung out pattern,
yep.
But it's still creating that wafting hook bait,
positive.
But it's holding it in a place, and especially if the wind gets up as well. Once it gets up, it's really hard to keep it on the same line. You know, the wind's blowing your line off course, so a heavier float just pins it in place a bit better.
What about rods? Because there's, you know, the old traditional splice tip rods.
Yeah, you don't want anything that's poker stiff. A lot of the time you're catching roach, you're catching dace. Roach can have soft mouths, you know, and you can easily pull out of them. So you don't want anything too stiff, but likewise, if I'm catching at the end of my peg here, which is about 30 yards away, I need something that's going to set that hook home, you know, especially with chub. This sort of fishing, I'm using hollow tip rods today, which have just got a bit better reaction and a bit more power. Still soft enough though to cushion. If I was fishing under my rod tip and fishing for little tiny roach and stuff, then I might look at a splice tip rod or something of that ilk.
Right mate, I'm going to let you have a fish for 5 minutes, but when you're done, if you can nip up the bank, I want to hear a bit more about this Pro Natural.
Yeah, certainly mate.
Mix up some Pro Natural. Tell me a bit more about it.
The ground bait has been designed for use on rivers, canals and still waters. It's a versatile ground bait. We wanted a mix that we could mix heavy, putting regular balls in, something that would sink quickly but also break down and disperse.
So the emphasis really is on the natural. Any fish meal?
No fish meal in this at all. More traditional really. It's going to catch everything. That's
right.
The idea. Fish meal is a bit selective. I know we all know roach now eat fish meal, but generally wild fish, wild roach, dace, things like that, they prefer a sweeter mix.
A lot of coconut, a lot of molasses, a lot of crushed hemp.
Everything that's in there have been finely ground, and it's got a lot of different flavours and, like I say, molasses, things that are associated with sweetness. And the amount of hemp that's in there as well, the way that's been ground down is incredible.
As it's developed, the mix has changed, hasn't it, to what we've actually got now?
We were the forerunners, if you like. The consistency was great straight away. It did everything we wanted to do. We wanted it in time for the festival on the river last year. Dave Harrell won the festival using it, and then we all sort of started winning a few quid on it, and the confidence was there.
This mix has been designed so it's all in one bag. Yeah. Nice and simple.
Yeah, I think we're all fed up of buying one bag of this and one bag of that, and ended up with half a bag of this, and this is just one mix. It'll do. Just put it in the bucket, mix it, it's there. The main thing is there's not great big lumps of everything, so you're always in control of what's going into your peg. You're not going to have fish sitting there filling up on particles that are floating past them.
You can definitely smell those aromas, mate, can't you?
It's not too powerful. There's just lots of little things that you smell and you think, I recognise that smell, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Quite a fine texture as well, isn't it?
It's been ground down. One mix does all, really. We wanted something that could translate to all venues. I want it to mix in a way that it's going to carry bait, it's going to carry casters and hemp, but I don't want it to be too sticky. I don't want it to be a ball that just sinks to the bottom and doesn't break down. It's got to mix right. And I find there's two ways to mix it. If you're looking for a ground bait that's going to hit the bottom and quickly open and disperse and release, mix it wetter to start with, put more water to start with and mix it so it's almost over wet, and then leave it for 10 minutes. Right. And then what you end up with is quite a spongy mix that will sort of, you know, it'll hit the bottom and explode. If you're looking for something a bit heavier, i.e. flooded conditions or powerful swims, so you want it to get down and stay down, something I might add soil to it or something like that to keep it down as well, then that's when I add it a little at a time and just, you know, sort of keep getting it until you get it right.
So there's no need for any other bits and bobs, is
there? No, there's everything in here you need, and it's been, I say, the way it's been developed, it mixes in such a way that you can sort of mix it to suit your needs on not just the day, the venue.
I see there's a dark version as well.
Certain times of year, in the winter, you know, you're faced with clear water conditions. You don't really want a bright ground bait sat on the bottom. You want something that matches, something that's just very subtle. And in the summer as well, you get hot, dry spells. The water goes very clear, and the fish become wary of lighter colours. They're
a bit different to the norm. These are 1.5 kilo bags.
You end up with so many half bags with kilo bags. It gets a bit annoying. But if you mix a kilo bag and ball in a certain amount of balls, you know, 7, 8 balls, most of that kilo is gone. You know, you're in two minds. Should you do 2 bags? And that's when you end up with wasted ground bait. 1.5 kilos should do plenty. Now this now is reaching the sort of consistency that you're looking for, because now I can pick up a handful, one squeeze, ball. Okay?
Right.
And if you imagine when you're fishing pole to hand or a ball of chuck, that sort of thing, that's what you want. You don't want to be sort of having to mould it with 2 hands. Just let it take on, and then maybe just a little bit more water and another mix, and we'll be ready to go.
10 minutes has passed, so all those particles should have now sucked up all that water.
But a great way to finish this off now, because I'm going to put some hemp in here anyway, so it makes sense to use the last final bit, just a bit of hemp juice.
Let me just see that. The hemp is fresh, it's cooked in the can.
Yeah.
All this cooking liquor is absolutely saturated with flavour and
It's
goodness.
full of it. It's full of it. And it's,
People throw that away, don't
yeah.
they?
And you'll see that when that hits the water, you see it giving off a burst of oil. It's and it's just a lovely way just to finish off the mix. Just give it that final bit of moisture. And there's another attractant. If I give that a final mix round now, so now we've got our consistency again, and now we can actually add some of the hemp as well. Depending on, you know, what time of year you're fishing, what sort of, you know, what you expect to catch. If you're in a good area, bad area, you can control what's going in. Good handful of casters as well.
This really is as traditional as it comes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hemp casters, ground,
Hemp
sweet
caster,
ground.
yeah.
Fish love it though, don't they?
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
And the makeup of the ground bait is such that you could put squats, you could put pinkies, you know what I mean, anything. It takes it. It would take live baits, but that perfect.
It's going to go down in 10 foot that easily, isn't it?
When you're throwing it a long way as well, for a ball to stay together when you really launch it, especially when you throw as badly as me, you need something that's going to bind, and that binds well.
Well, I've left Dave Roberts catching those huge chub on the stick float to come and meet this man. This is Bait-Tech's very own barbel master, Justin Beale.
I come here to get bites and try out different rigs and bait and stuff. So today we've got a little bit of water on, some colour, so my ground bait will be slightly different to how I would fish it on the low river when it's clear.
What do you look for in a barbel swim?
When I show you my swim, you can see that the pace quickens up, it's boily with some weed upstream, and there's a gully down through the middle. It's the first time I visited this stretch. This time of year you're looking for the shallower, faster water where the barbel are.
What's your favourite mix?
It's got to be a fish meal mix for me. That's always a base mix. Our new krill and tuna, I've been using this for the first time this season. Had fantastic results on the Y. Pretty much 50-50. I don't, get the measuring cups out. I do it by eye to start with. But little and often, as they say. I want it to give it some colour.
See all those little red particles of the krill and tuna in there.
Good tip with this, always carry a sponge. Chuck that in your landing net, dunk it in, you've got some water. So put a little bit in there to start with. You give that a good swish round. The lower and the clearer the river, the drier I like the mix, because I want the feeder to go in and just really explode out and just create a trail.
You see the difference in texture already,
Absolutely, yeah. That's how dry I would use that mix, where you have to really squeeze it hard together. Okay, and you can see that will fluff up. After a few seconds, that would just explode and puff out.
Yep.
And then my 4 mil pellets in between the sandwiches of ground bait would start trickling
So you've got the attraction, all the flavour attraction of the feed.
Definitely.
Instant hit, fish come in, eat your pellets, grab your hook bait.
And this is what the ground bait's for. It's not about feeding, it's just pure attraction. It's all about smell. But today we've got a little bit of water on, a little bit of colour. I don't want that to be that dry because it'll be out and gone before I know it. I want to make it a little bit damper, a bit smellier, and a bit stodgier, so it takes a bit longer to come out of the feeder. Touch more water in there. The difference between that mix and what I've just put in water-wise is minimal. That's the consistency I want that to be now. Also as well, it depends on how much you compress it into the feeder. If I put that in lightly, that'll explode out. If I put it in firmly, it will take longer, and that gives me that sort of versatility of how I want to fish. I'm going to get some 2 mils. Just going to pour a few of those in there like that.
It screams barbel already.
Oh, good grief, yeah, look at it. It's fantastic, isn't it? I almost want to eat it myself. So you've got all the bits and pieces in there from the krill and tuna ground bait and the halibut ground bait, but you've now got 2 mil pellets in there as well, and you can see them in there. They're going to float off down the river, they're going to get in all the little nooks and crannies. It's going to drive the fish mad looking for them. Finalise it with the tuna oil. I like a good glug of oil in there, just gives it some more attractants. A bottle of that lasts forever. Again, give that a good vigorous mix.
That's potent, isn't
That's
it?
absolute barbel fodder, that is.
Now this does scream barbel, doesn't it?
Yeah, but we're getting some bites and we're getting a bit of sport anyway. I like to keep things as simple as possible. It looks complicated, that rig, but it's really not. You'll see the rubber float stop.
Yep.
Put that on the rig first, and then roughly about a 12-inch piece of plastic tubing. That's critical because it's a very rocky river. So when you've got your feeder out there and it's sat next to a rock, it won't cut you off on the strike. I could put a back lead on that line there, and that would sit there nicely. On every river, that prevents tangles.
That'll act like a boom.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also provides a friction-free run. It's caught thousands of barbel, that rig, literally. Tangle-free, proven barbel catching rig. Playing around with the different sizes of the mixed halibuts here. I'm going to run with one of these size for now. Nice and easy to mount because they're obviously pre-drilled. Just put that needle in there on the loop, and then just put the little stopper in there. Now you'll notice on the hook, I've got a little piece of silicone. When you've had a few fish, your hair gets sort of damaged by chub and even barbel, and it ends up kicking out and bumping fish off because it's wrapped around. By putting a simple piece of silicone on the hook, you can adjust that to suit if you've got a bigger bait, if you want to adjust that claw shape of the hook. That just keeps that hair perfectly aligned that way, so you've got confidence that that's always going to be in the water.
Yeah. These hybrids, mate, your favourite barbel catcher.
Nice and easy, look at that, minimum effort.
No drilling.
I'm not using 2 of these exactly like that because they're a little bit too big for the hair that I've got set, about 16mm. I just flatten that pellet off like that, just with my nail. Put that on the needle as well, so that sits there. We'll pop that on the hair like that. Go straight on. That's useful if you want to fish the stick float or the waggler.
Yeah, ideal.
Even, you know, just a straight feeder. Such a good consistency is I can just pull that stop slightly into that bait like that. Almost like a boilie.
That's perfect, isn't it?
You know, and that could spin around. It looks perfectly natural, doesn't it? So just get a plug of ground bait like that. I'm going to put that bottom in quite firm, so that's quite stiff.
Right.
And I'm making that in an oval shape there.
Into a pocket, yeah.
Just grab a few 4mm, not worried about taking too many because I can put that in the ground bait. Just popping those in there like that. And then just capping it off with another plug of ground bait. I'm pushing it in quite hard, so I don't want it to explode out instantly. I want it to sit there and release some flavours. And there you go. And then 4 foot below that, you're going to have your bait. It's always about what you're happy with in the day. Tinker with your rigs, different baits, you know, feeders, and whatever you're confident with.
Then Dave, you had a few?
Yes, we have. 11 chub.
Have you?
Some smaller ones. We've had a roach, dace.
They're not all the size of that big one I saw you have earlier though, are they?
The biggest one I had was probably bigger than that. So.
Really? That lot? £40?
Easily £40, I would have thought. You don't need many at that size, do you?
Not at all, mate, no. Certainly proof that they like that ground bait.
And what's been interesting is every one I've caught has been in an area below the ground bait. I thought today I would catch down towards a lot of fish down towards the shallow water. I haven't caught a fish right down. I've caught a couple of smaller fish out, but all the chub have been right there. They've been sat and they've had casters, hemp, everything in them, and ground bait.
So they've been
sat
eating
there.
it.
Yeah.
Brilliant day's fishing, mate. Well done. Stick float masterclass, mate. Well done, mate.
Thank you.
Awesome. Meadowlands fishery in Coventry, home of some huge catches and Titanic battles. Talking of Titanic battles, I've got one on my hands today. I'm with Northern superstar Steve Barraclough. Ground bait down the edge has revolutionised match fishing in recent years. Me and Steve have come to Meadowlands to find out what it's all about, get to the crux of the matter, and find out which ground bait works in what situation. You've been catching a few this year, haven't you?
Well, I try. Obviously with this ground bait, you know, everyone's onto it. So the way you've got to do things is just keeping that step ahead of everybody else. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody fishes ground bait down edge, but there is obviously ways and means of doing it. Obviously the smells and things like that, the colours, it makes a massive difference. I hear a hell of a lot of people say it don't make a difference what you put down edge, but you'll realise the amount of people and the certain anglers that catch at different venues, you know, obviously it makes a difference.
You've brought the Bait-Tech krill and tuna, the big carp method mix.
Quite secretly I've been using it this year, yeah. With this method mix, it's slightly different. Obviously it's a lot more pungent.
All the sensory organs of the fish are really going to be stimulated by this extra protein and
that's right.
all these extra amino compounds that are given off.
The fish that do come down edge, the great big, you know, the big fish.
Yeah.
So they're soon cotton onto things.
You're confident that that's giving you the edge?
Totally. I mean, that's why I started messing about with different mixes then. It's same as most carp fishing now. We go into the big boys, we go into the bivvy men, as we call them as matchmen, you know. We go into that side of things and looking into things that they look into. Sometimes we miss out on that because we're just, you know, so stubborn as matchmen, you know.
Well, we're there to catch many fish in 5 hours, aren't we?
That's right. The way I like to do it is I like to put samples of my hook bait in with the ground bait. Because it's just natural then for them to pick it up. I like a big target bait over the top of the bait I'm using, and 9 times out of 10 you'll catch the fish.
You know what I'm like, I'm a self-confessed meathead.
Yeah.
I love it. I've caught so many fish with it. I've been catching with it this year. I'm going to be feeding the Entice Meaty mix. It's a different mix to the big carp method mix. It's a lot finer, but it's still got that real pungent attraction.
Which I think that's very important now, because they're coming to the smells and things like that. Whereas before, like I said, they want to cue, so they come to anything.
Yeah.
Whereas now, if you notice, the ground baits that we're producing and things like that really are strong.
I mean, straight away we can see the difference in texture straight away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and smell. Well, they're a very similar colour, but you can tell that mine is just slightly more pungent and things in it.
What I've got here, this pack with liver powder, all sorts of little meat derivatives, really, really finely milled.
Yeah, yeah.
That's going to melt off a method feeder really quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
And puff up in the edge beautifully.
Yeah.
What will really stand out now is the difference in textures when they're mixed up. Right, a little bit of water to the ground bait.
Obviously, the more experience you get, the more you know what to add and things like that, you know.
We've got to leave this for a few minutes, obviously, to absorb all the water. We've brought quite a few individual hook baits because it's very, very similar to method fishing.
How many times have you gone down, you've seen one, you've gone down, you put your hook bait on what you're confident in, it don't go under,
No.
you come back, change, go in and it goes under.
Exactly.
And it's same when you're method fishing, same sort of principle.
Fluoro boilies, there's some sweet corn, halibut pellets, luncheon meat, and some of these bad boys. These are the new hybrid barbel pellets. They're absolutely fantastic hook baits. And of course, the maggots as well.
Oh, faithful. See, it's important as well to make sure you do overweight to start with. I see people they mix it too dry, and what happens is when it goes in the peg, it just disintegrates more or less. You know, it don't work like it should. But as you can see, that is overwetted to start with, and you'll come back to that in 15-20 minutes. I mean, just one squeeze and that's a ball. Mine's a hell of a lot stickier, that's the difference.
Well, that one's more of a fast to medium breakdown, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas the Entice Meaty mix is a fast breakdown, fine particle mix.
Yeah. Drops down to the bottom, you know, and
Straight off
off the feeder.
Whereas that one will last.
They have to attack it a bit more, you know, to get into it with the method feeder. Which isn't a bad thing, because when a fish does come into the peg, it don't just waft about and disappear.
Yeah.
We've moved on with the times for a reason. Because the fish don't just come down and eat everything anymore. They come down, they're quite picky, and that's the reason why we've got so many different things, so many different ways of doing things, and that's how we keep ahead of everybody else.
Well, that's a brilliant tactic you got there, mate, but I'm sorry, it ain't going to cut the mustard today. This is where it's at.
They see, I think you're wrong. I mean, all we've got to do is go on results.
Great tip for you, and certainly one I don't want Steve to see. Get 1 tin of Entice, you're going to push it through a riddle, you can add that to your ground bait, makes a brilliant, brilliant method mix. Gives it a real instant hit of attraction, which those fish home into straight away. Take a handful of your ready-made ground bait, sprinkle that on top, and start working the meat and the ground bait together. All the oils, all the natural goodness that's in that luncheon meat now, all that protein is giving that ground bait that extra kick. Wrapped round a feeder with 2 big chunks of Entice meat on the hook is an absolutely deadly method mix. Entice strikes straight away. It's gone straight out into the middle of the lake. Barraclough's worried. In fairness, this is making a bit of a mockery of me here.
Most fish do, to be fair.
Still, at least there's one on the end of the rod, eh?
Early days yet, mate.
Bit of meaty magic worked again, look. It's a nice fish too.
Oh, it's only a baby, that.
They pull a bit, mine, Steve. Not, oh yeah, that's right, you wouldn't know about that, would you?
We teaching it to swim.
Oh dear, the Welshman's one up.
Yorkshiremen don't like to strike too early.
There you go, Steve, that's what one looks like.
Now, better looking than it's well to catch you.
Aha. Nice junk.
Yes! It's on the Yorkshire boy. And I thought you'd set me up with pegs. Look at that look. That looks like a worried look to me.
No, not me, mate.
Oosh! Eat that, Neil.
Oh, he's come back. He's in.
Oh dear.
Oh no! Got an angry one here, Steve.
It will do coming into you. And the Yorkshireman strikes again. A lesson in how to make a carp swim, and by Andy Neal.
This could eat them two of yours. Look at you!
A lot of luck involved in fishing, isn't there?
Look at that bad boy. Told you it could eat them two of yours.
Oh dear. Oh, yeah. Oh dear. That's a little one, isn't it?
Right, I've stopped fishing for 5 minutes just to quickly talk you through my gear. I've centred my entire approach along edge fishing. One pole rig, one rod. Very, very simple. It's all about the feeding and getting those big fish in close where we can catch them. My edge rig, there's nothing complicated about it. We'll start off with an elastic, a strong 14 to sort of 16 grade, very, very strong but forgiving. A hollow elastic that's going to stretch a long way. 020 Vertex mainline, really resilient. A small bulk with shots, the 0.2 of a gram float. Really positive float, thick tip. An 018 hook length with the same material. Should you foul hook a fish and the worst comes to worst and something needs to break, and finishing it off with basically just a big, sharp, strong hook. Plumbed up to fish 2 inches over depth. Bulk, I've got one little tiny shot just locking the float off so I know the depth. What I've also done, and this is something that we're doing more and more these days, is fishing a method feeder down the edge. And that's purely down to the size of fish that's around these days. These fish can be pole breakers, certainly line breakers. The last thing you want to do is foul hook one in shallow water. If you do find that's a problem, always have a small method rod on hand that you can just underarm down the edge. We've seen the ground bait mix I'm using the Entice meaty mix. With that, I've got some with my riddled meat in from my method feeder. I've got a bucket full of ground bait, hook baits. I wouldn't go anywhere without these little beauties. The Entice polony that I've cubed up into 6mm cubes. It's lovely and soft, and it's absolutely full of spices, garlic, all sort of really pungent fish attractors. 2 cubes of that over the top of some ground bait is a winner every time, and it's already caught me some real whackers today. What carp doesn't eat sweet corn? I never go anywhere without that, especially when I'm fishing in the margins. And we've got some dead maggots, again for the hook and to put in ground bait for down the edge. We're not putting a lot of particles in. What you can see there, I've just run my cup through my ground bait mix. All I'm going to do then is push that down. Pick up 30 cubes, add them to my cup. So you feed 3 or 4 of those to start, catch a fish, I'll top up with another pot. If I don't get another fish quite quickly, I'll top up with another 2 or 3. The reason you're getting through it is because the fish are eating it. They absolutely love it. All those proteins, it drives them mad. Barbel hook baits. These can be side hooked, hair rigged. Carp absolutely adore them. Don't tell anyone, but they're not just for barbel. Strong, positive fishing for big, big fish.
Andy seems to think I'm slightly behind him, but I beg to differ. A couple of little things that I've got slightly different to Andy is I always use quite a big lash between my float and my tip. One of the main reasons for that is so I can pull my pole away from the float while it's in the water. If you're fishing up to a pallet or if you're fishing, up to a banking, I'm able to actually pull my pole away from my pole tip above the head. I noticed Andy's not doing that, and when they come in and start getting very, very cute, hopefully I should have a bit of an advantage over him. I'm using an FP800, which again is slightly different to Andy. It's the same pattern of float, it's just a slightly bigger size. Now, I'm using a 0.3 here. I noticed Andy were fishing a 0.2. Now, the reasons for this is when the fish are coming in, they're actually wafting the rig around, and it led to more foul-up fish. I'm using 021 Vertex line, it's man gear, no messing about. 018 Vertex hook length to a nice strong 14 hook. The only other thing I've set up is a rod, and I believe I've seen Andy sneak one of these as well. Now, I like a nice small method feeder. For when I underarm it, you've got a nice little pile of bait so the fish are able to pick it out amongst all that ground bait that's down there. 4-inch hook length, which is 019, and I've just got a 16 hook and it's to a banded pellet. Now, I can change that and I can fish dead maggots and things like that. I've noticed a lot of people, when they're fishing down edges, they start to ball the ground bait up. Now, personal preference really, but when you're fishing in such shallow water, I don't believe that you need to do it, if I'm being honest. All I literally do is I scoop it out there, nice and simple, and I just firmly press it down like that. That just leaves me a little plateau there. I put a few sample hook baits in, and that's it. And then I just put a few pieces of corn, and all I do with that then is I just cover it back over. A couple hours to go, I normally cup in 4 or 5 of these, just cupping some water over the top. It either sounds silly or it sounds basic. Fill the pole pot up with water and just tip it out. Just tip it out. All I'm trying to purely do is make noise. Now that noise actually just drags the fish down to the edge. When we've finished fishing, we all chuck his baits in the end. And all I'm trying to do is imitate as though I've finished my session. Hopefully grab the carp's attention and I should catch a fish every single trip. Oosh!
Uh-oh.
Oh my word! Oh dear! Oh dear, have you lost that? Oh, that's a shame.
That were a big fish.
Anything you can do, I can do better.
Oh, listen to it.
We'll give you a lesson how to play them soon if you want. Is that another one I've just done? Oh, isn't it? Yeah. I'll get this one in then. I'll just get it in to show you.
Stop showboating.
Oh!
You're not let it go.
No, no.
Oh my God, another huge fish.
It probably won't be coming in knowing you. By the way you're playing them today.
I might let it go like you just did.
Put me on worst peg and then expect me to catch.
Told you the old entice will do the trick. I won't even charge you for the lesson.
Oh. Oosh.
What do you reckon of that one then, Barraclough?
Oosh. Terrible. I think he's biggest at day. Look at him waving at you. Woo!
Well, what do you think of that, mate?
Well, special. I think it was extremely good, mate. Very good comparison of baits. I think we're able to learn something for a start.
Massive average size of fish. Awesome venue.
Oh, unbelievable. Well, trying to get out already.
Yeah, and we both caught a stack of fish.
What I thought was interesting was how quickly they came over yours. They took a while to get over mine, but they seemed to stay over mine.
Yeah, those really, really fine particles that I was putting in of the entice meaty mix, going in and creating that, oh, in they go. Yeah. That slightly sort of medium breakdown grade method mix you were feeding, was going in, settling nice on the bottom. Right. They're coming over at their leisure, but it's keeping them feeding for longer.
Yeah, they kept coming back. Although you caught quicker and you caught more early on, I sort of creeped it back. So you're never really out of it. It's just like match fishing, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They're still in your swim now, aren't they?
They're trying to dig it up. I'd definitely say I've beat you. I would definitely say that.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, unbelievable. Let's get them back.
We don't want to try and weigh.
Don't be adding them to mine as though you've got big uns. Look at that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
In they go. Great day, mate, although you got bashed up by a Welshman again.
That's not how it works though, mate, you know.
Mate, you've got taft, let's be fair.
Yeah, it must be hard for you, mate, to come over here, bring me to a venue and get battered by a Yorkshire lad.
To be fair, you're full of it, aren't you?
My nets were full of it, you're absolutely right. At least we've come to a conclusion, pal. That's the main thing.
Viaduct Fishery in Somerset, known for its huge weights of hard-fighting carp. Hundreds of pounds are caught here on a daily basis, but there's a little bit more to it than just carp. Paul Greenwood, fishery manager, has joined us today to talk about the silverfish stocks that live here at Viaduct. One thing that seems to be growing now in popularity is the silverfish side of the sport. How has that all developed with the amount of carp that swim around?
They come hand in hand, really. The carp, you need the silverfish, obviously, to mop up all the bait from the carp fishing when everybody's banging a lot of pellet in. This obviously aids to the volume and the size of the fish. A lot of anglers now prefer to fish for silvers, especially in the winter. You know, when you've got the head of the skimmers and the tench that we've got, you know, you can go a positive days fishing down here. Your
silverfish leagues and your matches are very, very well attended. We've brought a couple of guys down today, Darren Cox and Ian Didcott, to try and catch a few. So I'm going to nip down and see how they're getting on. It might be raining, but it's certainly not going to dampen our spirits. So Ian, you're clearly catching a few.
Starting to sort of sneak a few now, just coming to settle over the bait.
Obviously you're feeding pro natural and you're fishing sort of worms and casters and natural baits with it. How many balls have you fed on your short line and how many on your long line?
2 balls just with a little bit of bait in on my short line, sort of 6 metres. A few casters, a few maggots, a little bit of chop worm, 25, 50 mil of bait in 2 balls, and then I've obviously fed a longer line where I fed 6 balls at the start with probably double the amount of bait in.
So you fed a little bit of bait short to try and catch fish over instantly. You've laid a big table out there for the fish to come over and settle over the top. You start on your short line, catch roach and everything that comes along, just to give you a long line, plenty of time to settle. The longer you leave it, the better it is when you go on it then.
Yeah, usually when you've caught sort of for 40 minutes, maybe an hour on your short line, catching all sort of fish that are just putting extra weight into your net, and then when you do go long, hopefully if you've left it for an hour, giving it an odd top up of bait every now and then, you drop in and it usually is heaving. You can just pick the fish off and top up as and when you go. The good thing about fishing a short line as well, you can actually learn how the fish are wanting to feed. You're topping up with like little bits of ground bait or little bits of worms or loose feeding casters, and it's working. You know it's going to work out there as well.
Exactly. Well, Coxie's sneaking a few as well, is he?
Yeah.
What are you fishing, just what we call a conventional rig?
I've got a couple of rigs set up. I've got a bulk and a couple of droppers rigs, and I've got a couple of pop-up rigs set up as well. I didn't want to fish like too big of baits because obviously we are on a carp venue, and unfortunately you run the risk of catching a few carp. What we're doing is fishing tiny little bits of bait, like little tiny bits of worms, single maggots. If you imagine your ground bait's on the bottom with the minced up worm in it, and the fish are just coming across, sifting through the ground bait, picking up little bits of worm. The last thing you want to do is have a great big piece of worm sitting over top of your ground bait, because when Mr. Carp comes along, he's just going to go, oh look. They're not going to spend so long in the peg sifting through little bits of the ground bait trying to find little bits of worm, but the skimmers will. You'll find that you get more positive bites and quicker bites fishing little bits. You can fish them on great big hooks as well. A tiny little pea-sized piece of worm on it, you think it doesn't look right, but it goes under.
Bait-Tech Pro Natural is a new ground bait that's taken the angling world by storm. This is very, very different from any of the other ground baits in the Bait-Tech range, purely because it's a multi-species mix. Ian's been a key part of the development of this. We've also now just launched the Pro Natural Dark. What was the reason for developing a darker side?
Given the water conditions we're under these days during the summer, like low water conditions, very, very clear, weedy.
On rivers.
On rivers, canals, and natural venues as well. But a dark mix is far more susceptible to catching a lot more fish over than like a light mix. Fish feel a bit more confident coming over it. They can feed over it for longer periods. It's not so blatant on the bottom, so
it's not going to spook them. They're not afraid
going
of
to spook.
Right.
Not going to cast a shadow to obviously attract the attentions of predation.
So we've mixed a bag of each up, the dark and the natural, and there's quite a stark contrast there, isn't there? One thing I know you were insistent on was the lack of dye used to darken it. When we fed ground baits with dye in the past, they just wash out. So this has been developed to make sure it doesn't come off on your hands. It's not a dyeing agent that's actually used to darken it.
No, it's a completely natural product. Coming up with a ground bait which is that colour, and it stays that colour, it can give you massive confidence about catching a lot more fish in low, clear conditions any time of the year. That will be my sort of set to ground bait for the whole year. I mean, I've been having like 20-pound weights where people either side of me are catching barely double figures. I've got so much confidence in it that the fish are just going to come to it and stay on it.
The key ingredients to this, fish love eating.
I mean, I just think it's going to be absolutely fantastic for everybody concerned. It can be used with a multitude of different baits as well. Some of our sponsored anglers took it to the World Pairs in Ireland. Half of them finished in the top 10, winning their sections every day, fishing it through a feeder.
It's not coincidence, is it?
No. This ground bait keeps producing the goods.
It's a great feeder ground bait as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because of the properties in it and the way it breaks down and the way it holds together, it's perfect through an open ender for your natural big waters. Are you going to put any pellets through it?
Just natural baits today. Going to feed sort of a few casters, odd dead maggot, a reasonable helping of like minced up chopped worm.
You like murdering worms, don't you?
I do like murdering worms. The results speak for itself.
Yeah.
Put all that in, mix it up, make up sort of 4 or 5 balls, and pot it in, judging on how you're catching. Top up with a big ball with similar amounts of bait in, or you're going to top up with like neat worms, neat casters. Normally on here you have to feed a ball and
Fish it out quick,
and then they top it out.
Yeah.
But they've stayed over the ground bait for so long today, we've not had to like top up so regular as you normally would do. How you doing?
All right, you all right?
Yeah, good. Catching a few?
Yeah, it's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, plenty of small fish to be caught, plenty of skimmers to be caught.
Well, that's the classic thing about fishing in winter and sometimes on these commercials, you don't have to catch carp to have a good day's fishing, do you?
No, that's right. I mean, sometimes, you've got another one there. Lovely, just right on cue. A lot of venues, much like this one, they run a silver pool as well as a carp pool every day.
Yeah, you catch these all day long, can't you?
Yeah. So how have you fed it today?
Well, I've done it a little bit differently to you. I've got some Pro Natural, I've got some Special G Gold. 50-50 mixed that. It's a really nice, fine mix. So I've split my ground bait, and half a ground bait I've loaded with micros.
Soaked up micros, yeah?
Soaked up, yeah. So nice and damp. You can still see them in the ground bait. You know, they soften right up. It's like a fine ground bait with a large particle in it. That's absolutely perfect for holding those hand-sized skimmers.
Your weight builders.
Yeah, when you want to go in and get a bite every single put in, these pellets just hold those fish in there. Got to keep feeding it. Little hard ball will go down, follow it down onto the bottom. You can pick those better skimmers off around it. I like to feed 2 lines. Now I've fed that left-hand line with my ground bait and micros. The other line I like to put quite a bit of chopped worm and castor in, and sometimes some dead red maggots as well. My worm line, I've put 5 tangerine-sized balls in, with not masses of bait, but quite a bit of ground bait, and plenty for them to graze on. On the other line, I've just put 1 ball in because I'm conscious there's a lot of micros in there. That's going to be my instant line, which it has been today. Yeah. That's my banker line, can keep going back to that and catching a few fish off it, even if it's a hard day. Those lines are about 6 metres apart. I'm convinced that the fish bounce from one to the other. So you know, you can go out on one line and get a decent fish, and you almost don't want to go back on that line because it's, you know, you think, well, they've probably backed off.
You know, I'm convinced that if you fish one line, you sit there and sit there and sit there and wait for them to come back, and you hook another one and they jump again, and you find that they spook and they don't ever come back. Feeding 2 lines is what I do a lot of, like you do. And you know, you can catch one off that, leave it, or put a tiny little ball in, rest it, and drop onto your other line. Then add sort of like, you can catch sort of like 5 or 6, 10 fish. You know, another pound, pound and a half, 2 pound of fish, while you're waiting for those fish to come back on that line.
For me today, 4 mils have been great. On that line over those micros, and I can get a 3-4 ounce skimmer every put in. I'm convinced I could probably catch 30 pound of those today in a match. Combine that with the other line, where I've had maybe 3 or 4, you know, good bream really. Just every now and again, put 6 mil on, because if there is a big fish there, you know, that big fish will find it. I know there's carp in here. You've got to feed these fish. You've got to get signs from a carp to catch these bream, because these bream definitely swim with the carp.
They do. Most good carp pegs are brilliant skimmer pegs.
Yeah, exactly.
So they swim around together, and I've noticed over the last few years, caught some great big fish on the short line. Just as you'd imagine that your carp would come short towards the end of the match, so do the skimmers.
I do like to use darker ground baits in winter. By feeding micro pellets, it gives a good contrast. If you've got an area of darker feed, and then you've got flecks of light particles in that, it's a great area to catch fish on. I'm playing about with today with some of our double elastics, 4s and 5s basically. I tend to use hollow elastics on venues like this. The simple reason, if you do hook a carp, you tend to get most of your rig back. Sometimes with double elastics and with solid singles, you can end up losing your elastic at the top because they just power off so quickly. My rigs are very, very straightforward. 0.2, 0.3 and 0.4 flows, DC27s. Got a wire stem for stability and a very fine hollow tip. I've blacked this one out. In winter, it's really important to have a float you can see as well, because there's a lot of places where you get that shimmer and that ripple. A bulk of number 10s, and then below that, I've got 2 number 10 droppers. Drop those down together if I want to. I can space them out. I like to fish a high bulk a lot of the time this time of year as well, because I think you pick up a lot of fish just off the bottom on the fall. And hook wise, B911 F1 for a lot of my fishing, and Garbolino line in down to 9 and 10. If people think that you've got to match the hook size to the fish, you haven't. You've got to match the hook size to what you're putting on it.
New gear for this year.
What do you think of that new pole you've been using?
For the money, it's fantastic.
It's what we call our new G system, which is a series of poles These go from 13 metre at £399 up to 16 metre at £1,200. You get different packages the further you go up the quality tree, as it were. The nice thing about this is you can actually mix and match top kits as well. These poles fit our whole range of top kits.
As per usual.
Yeah, so you can have one of these and you can have all puller kits if you want. Or you can have all power kits or all power light kits. It's nice and easy, great choice and lovely poles. We've got lots of kit this year. Loads and loads of good products, things like hooded side trays. Weather like this in winter, you need stuff like this.
Right.
If you get your bait wet, you destroy it. We've got new pole socks, ground bait buckets, we've got nice roosts as well, you know, like we call them windy roosts. The rests, the EVA, are basically shaped so that you can turn the roost either way to stop the top kits getting blown out.
Yeah, we've all had our top kits blown all over the place a lot.
We've got new pole rollers, really good, exciting products, and the brand is growing really strong this year.
I'm looking forward to using it.
We're a very specialised country in terms of fishing, because over in France they don't have these commercials, but they don't have the wealth of experience that we have on catching so many fish year in, year out, whatever time of year it is. We rely heavily on our sponsored anglers, the likes of yourself, the Steve Tucker, Jason Lebowski, and people like that, Simon Fry, really good anglers. They've come up with ideas, they've been involved in the trade, been involved in fishing for a long time.
It's helped my fishing no end, and we never bring out stuff which is like non-usable.
Right, it's got to be fit for purpose. Just about to launch the G-Max Super Legion, the rebirth of an old name, a fantastic pole. That's a hybrid of two poles basically, so it's going to give a 16 metre pole that's got a much nicer feel, much nicer balance at its full length. Be ideal for fishing commercials, islands, you know, canal style commercials. You need to get back in your box, mate, because see Andy's emptying your peg.
How we got on the DC? We caught a few.
Oh, it's been a great day. It's been really, really interesting. I think it's paid off for me because I've had a bream line, a chopped worm line, which is definitely better for the bream.
So you've got bigger fish on worms?
Yeah, and on the other line, I've been able to catch steady these little skimmers all day.
Let's have a look what you got then, shall we? Yeah, definitely. Oh, look at that lot.
There's a proper net of fish there, mate. Of all sizes of fish as well.
It's amazing, isn't it? The quality of the silverfish sport in these commercials these
days.
Well,
that's the beauty about it. You know, these fish don't get caught in summer very often because there's so many carp to be caught. Look at those. All kinds of fish there, look.
Yeah.
Masses of fish. Fantastic, mate.
Well
really
done,
enjoyed
mate.
it. Thanks for inviting me.
Superb. Well, Mr. Didcot, judging by the another bream you're playing there, you've caught a few, have you?
It's been a really enjoyable day.
Well, apart from the torrential rain.
Torrential rain, odd carp, and plenty of branches and leaves falling down. You know, the more ground bait we fed, the better it got.
I'm dying to see these. Look at them. What a net of fish that is.
60, I suppose.
£60 plus. Look at them, fantastic net of fish. That is absolutely tremendous. I think the proof is in the pudding, mate.
They just keep coming, don't they?
Yeah. Well done, mate.
Cheers,
awesome.
buddy.
Well, we just witnessed two of Britain's best, proving exactly why they are just that. With an epic net of fish each to well over £60, caught on pro natural ground bait with both pellets and worms and casters. The end result was plain to see. Can you afford not to use it? Method feeders. They've absolutely revolutionised the way we even think about today's fishing. I've come to Manor Farm Leisure near Evesham. We've got Andy May and Tony Curd. Let's find out a little bit more about it. Well, method feeder has been a really important part of our game for a long time. It all started years ago when we were using the frame feeders and moulding ground bait around them into rock hard balls, using big heavy rods to cast them in, watching the rod tip bouncing as the fish were attacking the feeder. That's developed on quite a lot from here, hasn't it?
Just a bit, mate, yeah.
We're trying to catch fish faster and more efficiently all the time. Everyone's been using what we call the flatbed method feeders. What is it about them that gives them their dominance in this game?
I mean, the worst thing about the frame feeders, Anne, was obviously when you put your hook bait in, you didn't know which way it was going to lie on the bottom.
Right.
So obviously a fish could be pecking at it, but couldn't get to your bait. And obviously the beauty of these, flatbed feeders, it don't matter how they enter the water, they're always going to go that side up, so lead side down. The advantage you've got of using a fixed feeder where you've got a piece of elastic going through the method is you can be fishing away, you can be making another one up on your side tray, so that when you wind back with hopefully a 10 pounder in the net, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You unclip that one, clip that one on, straight away. It's so quick fishing.
Method feeders themselves really are a massive, massive part of our game now.
Yeah.
More so than, as much as we love it, the old waggler style fishing.
I can remember venues where I used to fish where waggler used to dominate. We never used to allow method, it always used to be traditional feeder. And as soon as method started being allowed, that was it. You know, you couldn't catch nowhere near as quick on the waggler. We're even fishing method on sort of our short pole lines, like 6 or 8 metres, especially in deeper water where, you know, you're susceptible to a lot of liners. You chuck a method in, obviously your bait's on the bottom. All right, you're still going to get liners, but your hook bait's there, and when the fish have it, they have it. There's none of this, you know, your float going under, so you're instantly striking and far looking the fish. When it's on, it's on. It's really easy fishing. You know, anyone can do it. There's a skill factor coming into it when you're casting close to islands, clipping up, things like that. My favourite method mix, I'll always do 50-50 ground bait and micros.
Right.
So then I've got the best of both worlds. I've got the ground bait to draw fish in. Once I've hooked the fish, I want to leave some bait in my peg. Now obviously if I was just using ground bait, that disperses into the water, whereas the beauty of having micros in your mix, there's always some bait left there.
To keep them feeding.
Absolutely, mate. So the fish can be pecking around on it, and then obviously another method goes in, there's more bait going in all the time.
You're using the red krill and tuna.
Oh mate, swell bite. You can see how that had attract fish.
Yeah.
You know, it's attracting me already, mate. Give it here. It's awesome stuff, mate. You know, since I've been using it, you know, it's just pulling fish off, you know, people around me. You can actually see it happening.
Yeah.
You know, once it's in the water, the oils coming off it, it's just fantastic.
I think it's important that you get the right consistency of your ground bait. You don't want it melting off the feeder instantly.
You see a lot of anglers are mixing it like they would a traditional feeder, you know, like a block end feeder. They do it just so it sort of sticks together, so it's exploding as soon as it's in water. There's no bait left on your feeder. I always like to mix it. When you squeeze it, it's going to hold. So sort of over wet. I'll look to have sort of a cast every 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm always constantly looking at my side tray, looking at my watch. If I'm getting liners, regardless, I'm going to bring it back and cast in again, because the fish do want feed. Now going into winter time, you're only looking at sort of 3, maybe 4 casts an hour, and obviously that'll reflect on how I mix the ground bait. A faster breakdown when the weather's warmer, but a slower breakdown when the weather's colder. You can mix it straight out of the bag by hand. You don't need a whisk. There's no lumps whatsoever in there, so there's nothing else there to feed the fish up other than your bait.
The actual aroma and the smell this gives off is unbelievable, isn't it?
I wouldn't want to be downwind of this, mate.
No, it really is super strong, isn't it?
Oh, it's awesome,
and it creates just this pulling power, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What have you done to get to this stage?
You put your micros in, put your ground bait in, all dry, don't add any water to them, get your tub of water, and then just start adding the water little bits at a time and just start mixing. The beauty of having the micros in is it's breaking all them lumps down. Now what I'll tend to do, Andy, is I'll make it a little bit over wet.
It's a little bit of a snidey little trick, that one, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Very nice.
Oh, yes,
I like.
Very nice. I over wet it first, and then I'll leave it for sort of 10 minutes, come back to it, and it'll have gone dry, add a bit more water to it, and then you'll be left with that. But you might need to just add a little bit more water to it, especially if it's bright.
Just
once
keep
the
an eye
sun
on
gets on it. Yeah, definitely. Once the sun gets on it, mate, it will start to dry out a little bit. It's awesome stuff.
Yeah, so hook baits.
I'm on it, mate. I'm on it. I'm a 10 pounder. It's literally, you'll be straight on it. Yeah, mate, I'm on it. I'm on it. The pulling power of that, and obviously the fish will come pecking. They see that bait. That's it. It's game over. First off, we've got boilies, different sizes, 8 and 10 mil, pop-ups, suspended above the feeder on the bottom, dead red maggots, 6 mil pellets, and we've got some sweet corn. I'm going to start off on a banded 6 mil pellet. Tends to be favourable on carp waters. Notice the length of the hook length. Maximum we're going to go to sort of 6 inches. Put a bit of ground bait in the mould first. Method on the top. Give it quite a firm squeeze. I want this initial mix to be quite hard. I always want a bit of mix on there. Just drop the pellet into the mould. I'm going to bring a bit of ground bait, sprinkle that over the top. And I'm not going to squeeze as hard on this one, just so it's binding on. And then you've got the pellet right at the top there, and obviously that ground bait's quite soft, so that's going to start crumbling straight away as soon as you cast it in. And you've got the hard layer of ground bait underneath to keep attracting fish into your peg. Let's get it ooshed out and catch a 10 pounder.
TC, Happy birthday.
Oh, cheers, Anne. Brilliant, thanks.
Your own krill and tuna cake.
I'll eat it later on.
All right, mate, lovely. We've seen Andy's approach. You're doing something slightly different, which is almost, I suppose, an evolution of method feeder fishing, if you like. I see we've got pellet feeders and I see we've got a cone set up.
Yeah.
You're not using ground bait at all?
No ground bait, just all pellets. There's some different sizes of hook baits and loose feed.
Your favourite Special G?
Yeah,
green,
you can't beat them.
The carp and course?
Yeah, carp
standard
and course.
2 mils?
Yeah. Just put them in a tub and soak them and left them, and they're ready to fish whenever you're ready with them, really.
Which makes them nice and tacky,
yeah.
And you can squeeze them
Yeah,
right.
they're ready to go.
I know you've got a pellet feeder here. Let's see how that differs from a method feeder.
Virtually the same setup as you'd have with a method. Inline feeder, it's a 30-gram feeder because we're chucking quite a long way over there. 6-pound main line. The difference with this is you can feed slightly less bait. If you're chucking into island margins that have got overhanging grasses and things like that, you can virtually put the whole hook length inside it and not have any loop that will snag the grass and any brambles and things like that.
Okay. But one thing I noticed with this, the fish can only eat one direction, can't they?
Yeah.
Which is where your hook bait is going to be.
Obviously, if the fishing's difficult, this will be a better option because it can only eat from the one end.
Direct food source, basically. So you've got quite a few different baits here. We've got some 6mm Special G pellets, some 8mm carp and coarse pellets, a variety of mini boilies, corn. Is that similar to method fishing where you're just going to ring the changes of the hook bait?
We're feeding exactly the same anyway as if you was fishing with a pellet method.
Right, trying different baits, see what works on the day.
One will be better. We baited the hook with a 6mm pellet, put the top end of the hook length into the feeder. Your first scoop of pellets will 3/4 fill the feeder. Press it down so it's flat. The hook length's all been pushed in by the pellets and it's held there. Get the hook pellet, drop it into the front, and then just cover it right over again. And then that's your finished feeder. Water comes through the top and forces the pellets out.
The pellets expand, don't they? And they just fall out of the back of the feeder. The fish come along, voila.
Yeah.
I've also noticed you've got your Special G micro setup. So we're going to fish this on a pellet cone.
Yeah. The difference with those is, for this cone method, or method feeder, is that they will stick on and reach the bottom.
So these pellets are really, really tacky.
Yeah.
This does differ from method fishing and pellet feeder fishing, doesn't it?
It's more like a traditional straight lead rig. 2/3 of an ounce bomb running on a link swivel. A bead just to protect me knot. Another snap link swivel there. Quite important for this because you'll be taking the hook length on and off to put the cone onto the hook length over the hook. Yeah.
Do you have to use a specific length?
You can use as long as you like. I generally find a foot to 15 inches to be...
12 to 15 inches. Yeah. Just got a hair-rigged band on there.
Just for fishing pellets. Any baits work on it, same as the method again.
The pellet cone. All you're doing, you're picking your cone up, filling it full of your Special G micros that you've softened, and squeezing it.
Yeah, hard as you can.
So even I can do this?
Yeah. And then you get either a long baiting needle, and you go in through the fat end of the cone, and then it's just a case of taking off the hook length from the link swivel.
So this is why I see people with several hook lengths.
Yeah, you can have
making them up ready, right?
And while you're fishing, you can have the next one ready to clip on and cast out.
Right.
Hook the
hook length through there.
Hook length loop on there like that. Slide it down to your hook. Literally just pop it out like that. That goes back on the link swivel.
And that's ready to cast out. So this is why a slightly tackier pellet works so perfectly.
Yeah, you know that's going to reach the bottom.
That's brilliant. That's a little mouthful of food there, isn't it? No pellet feeders or anything in the way to potentially spook any fish.
Effectively, what you've got is a sort of a twist between PVA bagging and a method feeder.
An evolution of a method, isn't it?
You need to use a slightly heavier lead than you would if you was just casting out with a hook bait. What you tend to find is it cartwheels through the air. The cone will actually fight with it. You need that lead to go forward and the cone to follow it.
So a heavy lead, so you're casting the weight of the lead and not the weight of the cone?
Not that.
So I know Andy started fishing.
Yeah.
And you're not happy with that, are you? No. So then, birthday boy, how are you getting on?
Had a few on the cone, and I've just started chucking a pellet feeder on the same line.
So these Special G pellets, Tony, this is your second appearance, isn't it? You used them in the last show, didn't you?
There's nothing better for that type of fishing. You need that bit of confidence to know your bait is actually getting to the bottom.
They're as good as it gets when it comes to a feed pellet. Well, they clearly work for you, mate, don't they? Let's be fair. It's how's the big lad doing next year?
No, he's doing all right.
Oh,
there's
look at
another
that.
one. Oh, he's got one himself.
Oh, he's got one himself as well now. You're having a bit of a ding dong, a pair of you,
we're having a little bit of a battle.
F1 Daddy May, what have you got? 2.5 pound a beat, mate.
I think Big T might help.
Showboating a bit, mate, isn't he?
Oh, I don't reckon so.
Oh, it's a Thomas! Yeah!
He's caught a park bench.
Shouldn't you be firing any of them? Oh, he's in! Quick, quick! Don't lose it! Oh, he sat down!
Oh, there's another one.
Another 10 of them, mate, you'll catch me up.
Yeah, I might.
Oosh! He's fell off.
Oh, no.
Oh! Ah!
Oh, I missed it. It's your fault.
Oh, 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 oh! Point on wine, Dan. Yeah! You know it, mate, you know it. Trying to take it easy on your Big T. You know what I mean? But
you're a horrible man.
Is
no.
the krill and tuna leading the way?
You know it, mate.
I don't know, mate. OTC's caught a few, hasn't he?
He's had a few on the quiet, but I've been ooshing them out, mate, on this. You know it.
The whole krill and tuna draws them back, though, doesn't it?
Oh, mate, just a bit. Oh, he's there!
He's in there.
He's there.
They're lovely fish, aren't they? Big stamp of F1s.
Them fish just love them pellets, that banded pellet.
When you look across that island where your feed is going in, you can see the odd tail coming up over the top, so they're definitely eating it well, aren't they?
Imminent, mate.
Oh, point of wine!
Yeah!
Come on!
Oh, it's a backwinder and all.
Tell me about this point and wine then, because it seems super effective.
Well, basically, you'll know within the first few winds if it's a proper carp or an F1. Whenever you're catching F1s, what you don't want to do is be playing them traditionally, you know, sort of rod to the side, winding down and pumping them. You just want to literally, like you would a skimming on, point your rod and just keep winding.
Get their noses coming towards you and just keep the pressure on them.
As soon as you go to play them properly and they get a turn of speed up, you know, F1s, there can be nightmares of falling off your hook.
Right then, Mr. May, how's your krill and tuna day been?
Oh, mate, it's been awesome. We've had a few fish on that today.
Oh, yeah.
Best bait by far was 6mm pellet, but all fell to that krill and tuna and it was just awesome, mate.
It goes to show how powerful a method feeder is, isn't it? Look at that lot. 50 pound in there, mate. No, at least. Look at them. Oh, look at them, mate. Well done, mate.
You happy with some of them in a match, wouldn't you?
You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. It was awesome days fishing that.
Brilliant, mate.
Awesome.
That
really
method feeder's frightening, isn't it?
It is, mate. It just shows the power of it, you know, over conventional feeders and what have you. They're homing in onto the ground bait, and because you only got a short hook length on, they see it, they have it, and that's it, it's gone.
Well done, mate. Let's go and have a look what TC's got.
Oh, but he's not caught. Hey! Whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't tip him back yet, Tone.
Let's have a little look, mate.
There's a good smell.
Them Special G pellets have worked again for you, haven't they?
Well, I have, mate,
Well done, mate.
Look at them lot. A lovely bag of fish. All on the comb, mate. Yes, look at those. Beautiful.
Lovely F1s in there, mate.
Big ones, isn't they?
All on his birthday as well, look.
Yeah.
Well done, mate. Fantastic day's fishing.
Cheers, mate.
You got your phone on you, mate. We won't do it. We couldn't do it to you.
Couldn't do it.
Could we?
Could we?
Could we?
Could we?
No,
Could we?
you
Shall
can't.
we?
Could we?
Don't. Could we? Could we? Well, I guess all good things come to an end. Hope you picked up some great tips and advice from our boys on the bank. Don't forget, visit the website, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and once again, I'll leave you with the best bits. I've come down to Hereford's River Wye. No, I haven't. Well, let's just do... No, it's not started. Put it around your method feeder. Hopefully it'll catch you all.
Oh, God, I've lost it. I've lost it.
We hate trains.
Yes, he's lost it!
My arms are starting to ache. He's joined us at the River Wye to have a little look to see if he can... We're huge weights of hard fare in out. I've come to Manor Farm Leisure in yeah, we know where that bit's going, don't we?
Oakley dokley, neighbour.
So, hope you've learned a lot from our guys on the bank. Oh, no, don't do this now.